This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to the Front Porch. Real conversations about life, leadership, and perseverance. Each week, Dennis Polian and Jay Davis bring you inspiring stories and lessons to help you grow, lead, and thrive. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome back to another edition of the Front Porch. It's a hot one today, 102 degrees here in Central Texas, but we still managed to make it out. Jay is in charge today. That's the new twist. So I'm going to throw it to you.
I think that's just we were supposed to have some guests today, so
We were, and they'll be back. Hoop Waco.
I was going to accuse you of being lazy coming off vacation, but yeah. So he's Dennis has surprised me with with topics out of the blue. So I thought that you coming back from vacation, Spring Lake, New Jersey. You know?
Oh yeah.
With your role and everything, that's where you people.
people
summer. I know. So yeah, we're just sweating it out down here in Central Texas, but and got to spend some time with the family.
I did, which was nice.
Cool trip. If anybody follows you on your socials, they'll see that you got preferential treatment at the Phillies-Mets game, huh?
I wouldn't call it preferential, but it was definitely special. Special day for my son.
It was cool. It was cool to see, and so I got to thinking that if anybody that listens out there knows your background, knows about your family, knows about your dad, your brothers. You do have a sister that's a teacher.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Did
she get
she
lost?
was there too.
Does she get lost in the mix sometimes?
Yeah, yes, I think so. But I think she's okay with it too.
So I got to thinking about, I had one sibling, but I got thinking about the invisible scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
As business owners, high performers, high achievers, organizations you've been in, your previous life in the NFL and Power 4 football, I think no matter what we do, if we're competitive at all, we always feel like we've got something to prove, whether that's to others or to ourselves. And that invisible scoreboard is, I would say it's either challenging us, not making us complacent, but maybe influencing some of our decisions. Kind of in your experience, at high level professional sports, and now pivoting to being a business owner, did you feel like you went back to New Jersey and with the family and felt like you had to kind of validate what you're doing?
Man, that's heavy. And by the way, this is not scripted or prepared, which was the point, to make it real. Oh, that's a great question. In certain moments, yes. And in certain moments, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And other moments, bad, where I had to check myself and check my thoughts and realize, like, this is a completely different animal, and you mentioned our trip to the Mets Phillies. We were, it was really, for my son Finn, every summer we're trying to catch a baseball game somewhere and get a new experience, and we're fortunate to have a tour set up before the game. And we got to see the Mets take batting practice, and we were watching Francisco Alvarez in the cage working on something very, very specific. And I couldn't even tell you the technicalities of it, but you could tell he was working his hand placement and his stance in the box and where in the box he was. And that obviously had to do with who was pitching and what their scouting reports were. And Finn noticed he wasn't trying to hit home runs every swing. And he was like, why isn't he hitting the ball very far? And I was explaining to him what was happening and what he was doing, and that it was really a fundamental. He's just working on a fundamental because there's a report that's basically saying there's a chance he's going to see certain things. So he's trying to set himself up for success in the game, see certain types of pitches and locations of pitches and where he is versus versus where the bat is. And we're going through all of that stuff. And I said, so like what we're watching, right? It looks boring, right? And he's like, yeah, like the ball's not going far. And because Lindor was in before Alvarez, and Lindor was just crushing him to center field and left field. And in it's not PNC Bank Park. It's I forget already, but the left field.
You should probably remember because it's probably a title sponsor that might want to jump on the front porch.
I know, yeah. Center field and left field are far in that park, and it was humid, so the wind is heavy. I mean, he was just crushing them, and Finn noticed the difference. And then during the game, Alvarez hit 2 home runs, and he after the second home run, he said, "Is that why he was working on those things during batting practice?" So I was like, "You're exactly right, buddy. It looked boring, but there was a reason behind it, and that's what made it, what put him in that position." And then he started mimicking with his body, like, "Oh, he was doing this and doing this." And then we were talking about the Mets pitcher, Christian Scott, who's a rookie and having a really good year. What he was doing with his glove in his release. And how that can generate a few extra miles an hour because it helps him get his hips around faster. And then he started mimicking that. And it actually reminded me of, hey, it is that simple. If a 9-year-old can get it
right
and understand it, why do I easily get caught up in things that are not fundamental to my business? And because when I'm home with my brother and my father, and they're talking about things that I used to be involved in that I'm not involved in anymore, and the principles are the same, but the details aren't. They're not privy to my details, so they don't understand it. And I'm not saying they don't care, but it's hard to have an engaging conversation and it's hard to gain insight. So then I become a listener, which is fine, but you're also become a little bit of an outsider. And not in a negative way, it's just kind of what it is. And so and that's when it's like, did I make the right decision? I could be doing this still. Why am I grinding away at business ownership? Some of those things. Then we go to the baseball game, and it was like a total reset just with that conversation with Finn. And then we did something else as a family, and more conversations came up. And what I decided I was going to do was I was just going to ask more questions that were based on my business and how I could take those answers to benefit me, right? And learn from, rather than try to play a game of, you're doing this, you're doing that. And when we had all the aunts and uncles over at the house, it became, well, what are you doing now? Well, what are you doing now? And what are you doing now? And there was some PE guy type stuff going on with the younger cousins who were on Wall Street and their fintech jobs. And it got to be so funny. And it's human nature. It's easy to get caught up in the, I'm just a small business owner from Central Texas. And you have to, I think that's human nature when you're used to being on a different level of the mountain. Yeah. When you start the climb over, and I just reminded myself I'm reinventing myself, and in the long run, it's going to pay off if I focus on the fundamentals.
And knowing you the way I do, it's not an insecurity or a need to validate yourself. It's just, hey, I'm over here. This is what I do, and it's really hard, and you guys have no idea. And not that I'm trying to prove myself to you all. You pivoted this for your family, really, and for your wife and your kids. But if you're competitive at all, and especially with siblings.
Oh, yeah. And
there comes a point where you got to bow up a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, my sister and brother are my oldest brother. They're 7 and 8 years older than me. My middle brother is 2 years older than me, and I'm the youngest. So it's natural. It's just a natural like, oh yeah.
You think you're cool, but listen to this story about how we helped this client. Have a seat.
Oh, yeah.
Here, have a cocktail, because
exactly.
this is a heck of a story.
Yeah, you think that guy's a big deal. Let me tell you about the $20 million farmer I work with.
Life moves fast, but the unexpected doesn't care about your calendar. At the Polian Agency, we help successful families protect what they've worked so hard to build. From life insurance to smart coverage strategies, we tailor protection that grows with you, so you're prepared for whatever's next. The Polian Agency, where protection meets purpose. Visit PolianAgency.com or call 254-772-1444 to start the conversation.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience, but I think if I were younger and less mature and weren't doing all the research I'm doing in my PhD program, I wouldn't even be aware of those feelings, and I'd probably just be a jackass.
Right.
But instead it was a different thing. And I also, on the trip, like purposely tried to make sure we weren't in as many of those environments, because the trip was more about everybody seeing everybody and spending time with the kids. My parents are in their mid-80s. They don't see their uncles and their aunt and cousins really very much. So that's the reason we went there. Right. We didn't go there to like have a think tank on who's a better coach or how you would run this versus that, even though some of those conversations came up naturally. But
yeah, and it's tough. I mean, in a very successful family like that, we all have an ego, right? And you all feel like, you don't want to be the youngest over in the corner just getting a head pat, right?
Yes. which is no matter how old you are, that's what you get. That's what you get. You're the baby brother, and hey, good boy.
Yeah, Dennis is over there doing his insurance thing. Isn't he cute?
Why don't you go get us some ice cream? Keep the change. But that is, we've talked about that before. There's an aspect of, why are you doing this? That's crazy, when you do it. And then and by far business ownership is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've done some hard things and been in some adverse situations with Katrina and COVID, and they don't match the stress and the constant second guessing of your decisions internally, because it's your money. It's your money.
And again, it all, it started with the invisible scoreboard. I mean, that if you're competitive at all.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. We all have an ego to a certain extent. But you have to be able to, you kind of have to be able to detach yourself a little bit if you're going to grow.
Yep.
Personally and professionally. But, thinking, I kind of put you on the spot, but, I go back to my golf and, kind of a 1-year anniversary with the Open Championship, and Scotty got into that whole thing, how golf's not his identity. That was a press conference last year. Then he wins the tournament. And, when I was thinking about trying to trip you up today with the topic, I was thinking about, with my golf, I knew kind of my path. I played Division I golf at the University of Louisville, but I had figured out early that if you won a state amateur championship, you got invited to all the top invitationals in the summer. So although we played a great schedule, I think the highest we were ranked in my 4 years at Louisville, I think we slipped into the top 30. And I made it to the NCAAs as an individual one year. but I knew that I had to go play against the best players in the country. And the only way I knew that I was going to be invited to those tournaments was to either be an All-American at Louisville or to win a state am. Mm-hmm. And so I was on a mission from the time I played my first state am, Illinois State Amateur Championship at 16. And then I got to the point where I finished third, shot 65 the last round, finished third. Next year I came back, finished 11th. And I remember leaving that year. My dad always caddied for me, and I said, I don't care if I win anything else, college, otherwise, I'm gonna win this state am. And everything I thought about, everything I did, whether it was a college tournament, I mean, that's all I thought about was winning that tournament, because I wanted to go play with the Justin Leonards and the Phil Mickelsons and the David Duvals. I wouldn't see those guys unless I got to an NCAA championship, and I wanted to be able to compete with them basically almost on a weekly basis during the summer. And I finally came back, and all the CDGA guys, all the officials, the Chicago District Golf Association, had told me that they always had a pool, and they had been betting on me for 3 years prior to the year I actually won. They all threw $20 in the pot.
That sounds so Chicago.
They didn't tell me.
Were there any threats involved?
They asked me what size shoe I wore. I'm not sure what that meant. But I finally won, and my goal was to win, but my identity was tied to that.
Yeah.
And I finally won, and it was like, I worried for a year, and I worked as hard as I could for a year, and I win against a hometown guy. With the tournament was hosted at one of the top amateurs in the state. It was at his club.
Oh, wow.
So we had 300 or 400 people. The last day's always 36 holes. So we had 300 or 400 people that 395 of them were pulling for him.
Yep.
And so I had that, and he was an extremely slow player. And the last day's 36 holes, and we were paired together in a twosome for the entire day.
Oh, man.
So I had to watch this guy just work me over with four-corner basketball going on the golf course. And so my point is, I finally won, and it was like,
now what?
It really wasn't like, it's just like I've tied my whole identity to this for a year, and the tournament was an hour and a half from where I grew up. My dad and I were driving every day.
Oh, every day. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And we're driving back, and it was great, but it was like I got up the next day, and it was just like, that's it.
Yeah.
So, and then I win the next year and win by 6 shots, but there was the expectation of it.
Yep. So different.
So it's like you never really, we say we have this invisible scoreboard, and your identity's tied to winning and people expecting you to win, and then you win, and it's just kind of like, it's not really a big a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So we think about business and think about your 20 plus years in professional sports at the NFL level and the Power 4 level, and then you go do what you're doing now, and it's like, and then you go back. I just thought about the whole family dynamic, just siblings, and your dad being what he is in the NFL, and thinking that there's an identity thing there that Dennis got out of the family business, so to speak, and went to do this, and it's, you're gaining ground and you're doing it the right way. But I just thought about, how did you feel?
Yeah. Well, I definitely felt like I missed it. And I think any business owner that's new, especially somebody that does it midlife, like we did, you've got to. There's moments of having conversations with yourself, and when I'm around those folks, whether it's my family or others, I'm having those conversations with myself. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, right, like moments like the Mets-Phillies game, getting to share things like that with Finn and my brother and my nephew and my dad, that's what makes it worth it. And if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I certainly would not have been able to go up there that particular week, and or for a full week probably.
Yeah.
And that's why I did it. And I think too, when I think this trip, I don't want to speak for them, but I think I could feel from my family how they see what my relationship with my kids is now, and what my relationship with Jenny is. And then they say, okay, I get it. Like, yeah. And there was a good joke about me being a better dad than everybody, because it was like some folks went golfing and I didn't go. And it was one of those, well, everybody thinks you just gave it up so you could be a better dad than everyone else. And I was like, well, I didn't give it up, but that trip had a different purpose, right? So for me, and feeling that from my family was also some validation on the invisible scoreboard as well. So it kind of goes both ways, and you have to just check yourself and have an even keel, and try not to ride the roller coaster from a business standpoint. But when I get into stuff on strategic leadership with my doctorate, I find myself having to do assignments on Fortune 500 companies, and then when it's an independent study, I'm drifting over back to sports and getting diving into it. And I'm like, I need to make sure this is going to help me with my business too. I can't just do this because it's what I know, and some sparks of creativity come. I need to challenge myself to just stick with it despite those little moments.
The last paper was a little too easy, was it?
It was. I only got 4 points off too. We won't talk about that here, but I did share it with my dad, and it turned into a great 2-hour conversation just about the business of baseball. But and that was again like, I could be doing this, but that is that's a battle I think, well, at least you and I are willing to admit we fight. Yeah. But I think everybody does fight it, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah. Yep. Every day. If you're competitive at all, I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge is separating your identity from the result. Mm-hmm. I think that's. I mean, when I was playing. It took a sense of it took a while and a sense of maturity to understand that, because you're always worried about. I mean, your name's. I'm gonna date myself, but your name's in the paper. Your name's in the USA Today. And people are. You're like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't start at the bottom and work up to see where my name is. I hope I need to make for damn sure that I'm up at the top so they scroll down rather than scroll up. But it's just doing that and knowing that, your progress is a number that everybody can see. Yep. And it is so hard and so difficult. And even now that you see some of the greatest players in the world, a Wyndham Clark that won the U.S. Open, for the second time, and working with a gal that he's been working with now for 3 or 4 years. And it's crazy because I follow all that, and I don't know how she slipped through because I didn't really know about her until about 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
And supposedly she's been working with guys for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea. Which is because I'm looking for every angle I can, especially with things like that. I mean, I read self-esteem books. That had nothing to do with golf. Just trying to, separate yourself from the result And it's just, I don't care what you do, what you're doing now versus what you did. I mean, it's still the same, right?
It's the same. And, for the jobs I had, we were part of a big team.
Mm-hmm.
But the head coach and the quarterback were taking the credit and the blame.
Mm-hmm.
And you were tied to it, and your job was impacted by it, and you felt a sense of duty and identity, but you weren't, behind the scenes folks weren't reading their names in the paper unless they were promoting themselves, right? Because they wanted to see their name in the paper and or online. And so there's a different level of solitude for, I like to say, pitchers and golfers, because you're out there alone with the camera on you. No, everybody's looking at you. There's nowhere to hide. That has to be the toughest challenge in high performing situations, in my opinion. A CEO of a hedge fund has investors to answer to, and that's a different level of stress.
Mm-hmm.
But if he or she have to answer to investors and have 20 million people watching them make their decision, that's a different level of stress. And that can, in a competitive person, that can create a lot of emotional decisions or reactions to certain things. And nobody goes through that more isolated than professional golfers and pitchers in the big leagues. It's just, it takes a special mindset. I think in other sports, there's a lot more opportunity for support from the people that are going through it alongside you, because they're not competitors, right? You're out there going through the same thing that whoever you're paired with is going through, but you're competing with yourself, and you're competing environmentally with them, even though you're trying not to think about competing with them. All of those dynamics. I hate giving you compliments, but for you to do what you did in golf and be among a very small group of people, it takes a special kind of mindset, and it's why you are a successful business owner, why you're doing what you're doing with the business that you're helping operate now. And I actually use that for me, being 2 years in as an owner. Last year, after about the first quarter or so, we start to see really good positive momentum. Mm-hmm. And then there's, like every other business, stability issues, competitive rate issues, things like that. And our growth this year has been positive, but it's very up and down. And if I'm looking at the scoreboard, I'm a failure. If I'm identifying those results with who I am, mm-hmm. I'm a failure. And I can't have that mindset, or I will fail.
And you have people forcing that identity on you as well, which is even can be debilitating at times
every
if
day.
you let it.
Yeah, every day, people who are really not in touch with how the industry is really going, mm-hmm. telling you you're failing and what you're doing is failing, even though it's really not. It's other factors, but they don't care to get into that, right, because their compensation is tied to other things. Wow. And I look at you and what you've experienced as a reminder sometimes to remind myself, I can't pay attention to that. I can't let my team pay attention to that. We are just going to follow our fundamentals, and when we follow our fundamentals, things will work out in time as long as we're consistent.
Right.
And when things fluctuate, it's because we're not consistent, which is natural, mm-hmm. but you have to fight it, and you have to build a lot of grit to it. But if I took all of the scoreboards we're given, all the spreadsheets, all the quasi-motivational lectures on you're a failure, I would probably, if I tied that to my identity, I'd be miserable.
Yeah. And back to the golf thing, I shouldn't have never said this out loud. But there were times where I was so down on my game that I thought after I played a poor round that there was actually a scoreboard above my head wherever I went that said what I shot that day.
Judge Smells walking behind you with the
Davis +4. That's the way I felt at times. So, but
yeah.
it took and it it's just like you talk about with business. You've been in it 2 years, and you think about maybe the first 2 months versus the first 10 months to 2 years now, that there's a maturity and a growth where you finally start to understand that it's the same with golf with me. That's when I really started to take some pretty big steps upwards in the game, is that and I know you'll do the same too with what you're doing now, is that there's a recognition there, and there's a maturity that, and a belief that, what, I'm not proclaiming that I'm smarter than everybody else, but in terms of my business, I'm smart about how I do my business. I'm never going to say I'm smarter than you, but I'm smart about how I do my business.
Yes. And I actually voice that in conversations to make sure people understand where my mindset is, so that they
leave you alone.
Yes. I was going to say back off, but yeah, same difference, right? Is I care about my business. I don't care about the other things. So when it comes to my business, it's how we treat our clients, how we treat our prospective clients, how we educate them, who we refuse to do business with, which is just as important as who you do business with, and how my people feel about themselves, so that they believe in the process and that they're confident in what they do, because then they will carry forward that culture. And I have to remind myself that all the time. So I'm always vocalizing it so that people understand, you might not want to waste your time with me, because I'm going to do my best to ignore it or fight you back, on it, because there's an agenda behind every
If you really want to
thing.
help, then you know what? Come really understand my business.
Yeah. Look at what
not just my number.
Look at what we're really doing.
And it's like I've said this on the show before, but it's the thing that people don't understand is you'll see a guy miss 3 or 4 or 5 cuts in a row, and then he wins, and he'll sit in a press conference and say, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And same thing in business. Hey, you may think I'm figuratively missing cuts right now, but I'm getting ready to win the tournament. You just don't know you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know, you're not looking at the same things, and you don't have the same purpose that I do. And that's the biggest thing, with how we started this is separating yourself from the identity that's on the scoreboard.
Yep.
And trusting, believing in the process in yourself, and that you have put together and formulated a plan that is going to work.
Yep.
And
maintaining that belief. Yeah. It's funny, every new family member that showed up at the house over the last week was like, hey, how's business? And I would just say, slowly, it's okay, slowly but surely. And at one point, my sister said, well, isn't that really the right way to do it anyway? And I was like, well, yeah.
Thank you.
I was like, can you come and tell some people in my orbit down there that's what it's supposed to be. It's
sustained growth.
Yes, and that's essentially what separates people. Think about when you think about Cameron Young is a great example of just doing it his way consistently every day, regardless of what anybody says, and he breaks through in a huge way this year. had always shown signs, and it's easy for people to pick and prod and criticize, because that's what I guess people want to, live through other people's failures. But if you're really a competitive person and you really pay attention to those things, he was never really failing. He was building up to what he was capable of doing through a routine. And if you listen, that's what he talks about. And
he didn't identify himself as a failure.
Yeah, and Scotty Scheffler the same. And it's not like he just showed up and started winning. I mean, he went through some real golf adversity, and at one point on the world stage went through some real adversity. You don't come through that if your identity is tied to it. Right. And anybody that's trying to be an entrepreneur or a business owner or climb the corporate ladder, you have to have that mindset. Otherwise, you're going to quit. Yeah. And
going to burn out.
And or burn out. Mm-hmm. And that's why it doesn't take special talent to be in business, be really successful. It takes special focus, special confidence, work ethic. And you don't even have to outwork people. You just have to out consistent people.
Out consistent people.
Yeah, it's not very eloquent, but it's simple. I'm a simpleton.
Yeah. It's like a Colin Cowherd thing I heard. It's talking about quarterbacks. You just got to be more quarterbacky, right?
Oh, yeah. Jerry Gray used to talk about receivers. Old defensive back coach, played defensive back for the Houston Oilers. Actually was on the Oiler team that lost to the Bills in the greatest comeback in playoff history. I was ball boy. He and I used to have fights about real debates about that game, because he and Bubba Smith were part of the play where Don Beebe stepped out of bounds, but they didn't call it and turned a touchdown, and he's still mad about it. And I'm just like, well, there's no replay, coach. I don't know what to tell you. He is a great human being, a great teacher. He's a really good coach. And we were at the Titans together, and I would do advanced scouting reports. And they're different for the offense and the defense. And when I met with the defense, they wanted some real details on tendencies with the quarterback and receivers, and tells on what kind of routes they might run based on their formations, and just even the stance, the placement of their hands and their feet, and how they run certain routes, how they place their body down the field. I mean, he and Greg Williams were really into that, but he had the best way of complementing players who were so fundamentally sound that they would always get open. He would always say, he is the worst athlete on the field, and he outslows you every time. He outslows you every time, because he does the same thing at the same speed every single play, and he's so good at it, and he's so detailed. He's just going to get open. So our only chance is that the quarterback doesn't throw it where it's supposed to be thrown. He outslows him. It's his way of saying, I'm not going to pay that guy a compliment, but he was really saying is that guy pays attention to the fundamentals. So we have to be on our fundamentals because he's so good, and that always stuck with me. And then he would randomly, you'd hear him down the hall yelling, "He outslows you. It's not that hard. He just outslows you."
I love that. That's awesome.
But the message was clear. It was, hey, this guy is the fundamentals. This is why we work certain fundamentals, because the people we go up against, our fundamentals have to be better, and that's no different in business. Right. There's certain fundamentals in every industry that generate results, and those are the fundamentals, and they're different for every industry. But the fact is, you have to stay on them. You have to hold your people accountable to them, and you have to believe in them.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to stop.
Wow, Beeper hasn't gone off.
It hasn't, but we're close. We need some time
you want to do some impersonations or something, or
Well, it was a great trip, up to the Jersey Shore. Yeah. You didn't get to go? Oh, you flew commercial? Bummer. Yeah, we went to the Ocean Club. It was lovely. Lobster. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
That was public defender guy.
Yeah.
On that note, everybody,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us on another Front Porch.
Love you, Rowan. Love you, Reese. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Thank you for joining us on the Front Porch. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, share, and leave a review so more people can join the conversation. Until next time, keep showing up, keep leading strong, and we'll see you back on the porch soon.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.